Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tailosive Tech live on YouTube. I apologize in advance. I have found out, unfortunately, that I'm on Spectrum Internet, which is why it may be a bit spotty. I did a stream earlier today on the EV channel, and it appeared that when there is a dropout, it tends to not last more than 10 seconds, but it's still noticeable. You can still tell that, it's going to start buffering, but just hang tight. If I do start buffering, just wait probably 10 to 15 seconds and it should stabilize. And I'm also might not be able to live stream for quite some time after this. So I apologize also for the late hour. I know that normally I don't stream this late, but I'm basically streaming at the only time available for me right now. And this is probably my last opportunity to stream for um, potentially the next several weeks. So I figured, hey, a late stream might be better than no stream. This is broadcasting directly to all of you who have sleeping issues out there that were trying to get some rest and then decided, you know what, Drew's live. I guess I'll stay awake. And okay, how many apologies can I fit into this live stream? Third apology. I got some comments from our Tailosive Tech Pro members that I did not address in the last stream. I totally forgot. So I'm going to address those today. I apologize if you're not watching the people who commented this, but that's kind of the point of asking in advance. So I figured we should kick off today's live stream with those questions. And then we'll address the AirPods Max in the room. So YJ Choice is, what are your thoughts on the update cadence for the Vision Pro hardware before release? In other words, do you think they'll tack it on to the end of the iPhone presentation or have a separate keynote? Related, do you think there will be a Vision OS updates as part of DubDub 2024? So absolutely, because Vision OS is now another pillar in the whole ecosystem of operating systems. So it absolutely, just like we refresh iOS, iPadOS, kind of Mac OS, Watch OS, all of those get updated at DubDub. So it makes no sense as to why Vision OS wouldn't also get updated at DubDub. And similarly, like even though Watch OS was kind of brand new, they launched the Apple Watch with, Watch OS 1.0 back in early 2015. Even at DubDub, even though Watch OS 1 was only, like 2 months old, they announced Watch OS 2 and all these new features coming to the Apple Watch just after it launched. So yes, even though Vision Pro might not start shipping until early next year, that doesn't mean Vision OS won't get some massive updates. I don't know if they'll brand it as Vision OS 2 or if they'll just say, here's some updates we're bringing to Vision OS. It'll probably depend on when Vision Pro is ready to ship. For example, if Vision Pro is not ready to ship until June or July of next year, in that case, you don't really need to say this is Vision OS 2 because no one has experienced Vision OS 1. So just call it, okay, this is the new features we're bringing to the launch version of Vision OS. But in terms of the hardware launch cadence, it's really difficult to know because we're in uncharted territory. I guess YJ Choi is asking if it's basically going to be like the Apple Watch, which also gets refreshed with the iPhone every year. But this to me feels like a much different category. It's not using an A series of chip, it's using an M series of chip and an R series of chip. So my prediction is that it will get refreshed more in line with how Macs are refreshed, as in like every, I don't know, it's not super consistent with Mac. Sometimes you'll go 2 years without an update. Sometimes you'll go 12 months. Sometimes you'll go 18 months. Sometimes you go 16 months. Sometimes you go 21 months. Sometimes it's not exactly in the same place every year. So I think it'll depend on how good the silicon is and if they can make meaningful improvements to the M1 and R1 chip. But more important than just the silicon, we should acknowledge, is the displays. Most of the bottlenecks preventing Vision Pro from being mass produced and why we're hearing about so many production estimates be cut is primarily because micro OLED is very, very difficult to get right. Apple's basically never mass produced it before. It's a brand new display technology. Practically no one has really used it at scale before. And they said that's the bulk of the price, most of the money. Why Vision Pro is so expensive is because of those micro OLED panels. So if in time they find a way to make those cheaper or better or improve them, that will also, I think, be a great time to refresh them. But because this is so drastically new technology that's not very consistent with its upgrades, I don't expect it to be refreshed annually. Like I said in previous videos, I don't think that Vision Pro is going to catch on like wildfire. I don't think it's going to be a big jump from day one. I'm not in the Pacific time zone or in the Eastern time zone. I'm still on I'm on faraway island time. I'm in Maui right now, actually. So That's why it's not that late here, and I understand it's really late for the rest of you. And I was almost not going to live stream tonight, but I was like, there's some comments people asked, and we haven't done a live stream for a while. And I was like, okay, I've got a lot of traveling coming up, so if I don't live stream tonight, I'm basically not going to be able to stream for like the next week or two. So it's going to be a while if I don't stream tonight. But oh, that's interesting. Deepak says it's 8:30 in the morning here. I guess the chat today is just amazed by time zones once again. I'm basically in a time zone no one else is in. Um, so yeah, I'm traveling all over the place, but yeah, I think that mostly answers YJ Choi's question. I'll address the chat in a minute. It's just these people asked these questions like a week ago and I didn't answer them, so I feel bad. Okay. James Sanders Cedarloff made an announcement, so shout out to James. He says, I took the plunge and uploaded a YouTube video. God took me on a journey. I have Final Cut Pro for iPad that I'm using. I will contribute using that app for now. Any tips for not getting overwhelmed during the process? Ooh, I mean, for me, I would say switch to Mac because trying to learn Final Cut on the iPad was quite overwhelming. But that might not be an option for you. I know you're using an Intel MacBook, so Final Cut doesn't play nice. But uh, I don't have like a magic mystery solution other than just take it one step at a time. Sometimes even I feel overwhelmed when I know there's a video to make or I got to review something or talk about something. I'm like, oh, it's going to take forever. I got to address this. I got to talk about this. Then, of course, I got to sync up the audio, color correct the video, and stitch it all together, find the mistakes, put in the B-roll shots. And I think what makes any process overwhelming is when you look at everything that needs to be done. I still feel that way when I think about YouTube. You know, sometimes when we're in the tech dry season and there's not much stuff going on, I will think, oh my God, how am I gonna like make a career out of YouTube if I can barely think of one video idea now? And over the course of years, I need to be thinking of like hundreds of video ideas. I can't think of hundreds of video ideas. How's that going to work? But if I take a step back and just say, all right, I don't need to do all of that right now. All I need to focus on right now is the next thing. I think humans are really bad when we get busy and overwhelmed because there's so many steps and so many things to do. But if we just look at life more so as a one day at a time, just look at one step at a time. Okay, I'm not going to think about all the intricate processes involved with creating a video. I just need to do the first step. First step, set up the camera. Okay, I can set up a camera. That doesn't take too long. Okay, set up the microphone. Yeah, that's pretty easy. I can do that. All right, we're just going to record the video. It doesn't need to be the most flawless recording ever. It doesn't need to be over quick. Just start recording and see what you can say, see what you can put out there. One step at a time, just focus on that. And I think that's the main reason people get overwhelmed with things is they look at the whole picture and all the steps involved, too many things at once. This is good advice for anybody, not just people using Final Cut for iPad, which I feel bad for, but just anything, school, work, um, complex things, big trips. I know I've been doing a lot of big trips. Sometimes it can get overwhelming when I think about, oh, we have to go here, and then I got to lay over here, and then we got to transport to this, and then we got to go through security and immigration, and there's all these steps. If I think of all of it at once, it's really overwhelming and stressful. But if I just think about one thing at a time, just focus on the next thing and nothing else, don't think about everything else, then it's probably a lot less stressful. It's been great. Thank you for asking, Force for Good. Uh, yeah, it's 8:40 in the evening here. Um, but yes, also AirPods Max. Let's address the title of the stream. I think they absolutely need to be updated now that Beats Studio Pros have gotten so many of these features. I don't think Apple's going to kill off AirPods Max per se because they still have some advantages like of course, Apple Silicon on the inside. They need the H2 chip. I don't know why they haven't refreshed the AirPods Max with the H2 chip. That would have made a lot of sense. But they just gave it to the AirPods Pro. Thank you, Neil, for the super chat. AI video editing, Chat GPT, you're ready to jump cut. I have asked countless times over and over again for someone to show me a way to do that. I am all in favor of AI taking over my video editing, a GPT Final Cut, if you will, whatever you want to call it. I have asked numerous times. I've told people I'd be willing to pay if it actually works, but I haven't found it. Everybody looks at my video editing process and says, that seems pretty simple. I bet a computer could do that. And I agree, but no one has come up with a program that can do what I'm asking for. Still doesn't exist. I'm looking. I've been seeking it out for 5, 6 years now, and I still haven't found it. So Let me know if you find one because I'll be super interested. I would save me a ton of time if they actually made it the way I want it to work. There's some that kind of do what I want, but not really. They end up making it more complicated. Um, when they try to do too much at once, and sometimes you need it to understand the difference between a cut and just splicing, and um, it's a little bit more complicated than it looks, but I agree it should definitely be automated. I hope it becomes automated because then I could make videos much faster and get them done much quicker, which I would absolutely appreciate. So thank you for the super chat. But yeah, the most obvious ones I think is that Beat Studio Pro got USB-C. That's the big win. They got the both charging and power pass through. That's a really obvious one. I don't know why audio can't be transmitted through the Lightning port while charging AirPods Max. That was really bizarre to me. I was like, come on, these are $500 headphones. You should be able to just put them on and plug them into your Mac and get audio and power through that one port. That we At least I think that's possible with Lightning. Maybe it's not, but I'm pretty sure it can do that, and it doesn't. Um, and even lossless playback. So this is the first pair of technically like Apple headphones that support lossless. It's weird that they made their debut in Beats before AirPods, but they did. So that's definitely not something I think that needs to be exclusive to the Beats. So AirPods Max definitely are ready for an update, and I think a lot of people are going to be interested in updating to them once they carry over a lot of these features, but they should get everything the Beat Studio Pros have and more. Maybe not the headphone jack. I could see Apple being a little bit of a stickler about putting a headphone jack on AirPods Max, but hey, I would say if you're putting a headphone jack on the Mac, it's not that crazy to put a headphone jack on AirPods, the over ears at least. Obviously, you're not going to put them on the little buds because those are, you know, tiny little pods. Doesn't really make much sense for them. That's how we go back to just what are these things? Wired ear pods. That's how you get a headphone jack. But Apple still sells those, I think. Um, Lord Zero says you are streaming late. Hope you are well. I'm doing well. It's only 8:40 p.m. for me. I know it's no one else is in my time zone, so it's weird. But I just figured I better do some stream because if I don't stream tonight, I'm not going to be able to stream for the next week or two. New colors too would be great. Yes, I think they're definitely due. I didn't love the color choices of the Beats Studio Pros, to be honest. I mean, black and white is good, but the other colors, I don't know. I'm not like a big fan of brown headphones, I suppose. William McBride says, I got AirPods Max for free from Apple as my Beats headphones broke. Is that a really un-Apple thing to do? I've never heard of that, but that's awesome. I would love to get some Beats headphones myself and then break them so that I could get some free AirPods Max. But I don't think it works that way. Um, uh, Alexa Riley says, I don't know if you saw this, but are you planning on getting Vision Pro? Yeah, no, not really. I mean, I'd love to review it. I really want to try them out. I think there's something that needs to be experienced, but I don't honestly think, well, I'm excited for the future of Vision OS, and I think there's a lot of potential in that field. I'm not like, I'm not very convinced that the first generation hardware is a good deal. Like, I think the best implementation of Vision OS hardware is going to be in future generations, not the first one. You know, it's kind of like the, you couldn't see the future success of the iPhone if you just started with the original iPhone. If you just bought that one and used it all the time, you wouldn't really be convinced that this is the future. It didn't have an app store. It only worked with AT&T. Had the crappy 30-pin connector. It didn't even have a front-facing camera, and it didn't even have 3G modems. Um, which was a pretty common thing on smartphones by that time. So the original iPhone was also much more expensive than a lot of other smartphones at that time and was missing a ton of hardware. In the future, there were improved iterations that got cheaper and faster and more improved and more cameras, better ports and everything. And once they got their app store and their multitasking, that's when the iPhone kind of found its stride. But you notice that the first generation hardware for a lot of Apple products is usually not what takes off. It's usually just like the test bed for calibration. $3,500 is certainly a lot of money, but I'm fascinated by the hardware. I want to check it out because it's, you know, the first of its kind, kind of like how a lot of people admire and now look at the original iPhone or the original iPad. Yeah, Yi Hirasawa is right. You couldn't even change your wallpaper on the original iPhone. So the first generation is not honestly that important for the future of the device like legacy. Um, which is why to me the price and the limitations like the 2-hour battery life and the bulkiness of the headset and all that, it's not that important on the first gen. What matters more to me, that gets me more excited for the future, is more the intentionality behind it, and Apple describing what they're interested in pursuing with Vision OS and spatial computing, and what they want it to do and how they intend it to be used. That's more exciting and interesting to me, so I'll try it out, but I don't know if I'll keep it. I don't think I can make that decision yet until I try it and use it and see if it's actually something that I need or can't live without, or whatever. Um, I'm not sure. I don't have an answer, and I probably won't have an answer until I actually wear it. But thank you, a guy named Five, for the super chat. I'm rocking a 2019 MacBook Air, 128 gigs. Wow, that's small. I can't remember what compelled me to get one. I make music with it, but it's so slow. What do? Yeah, I never really recommended anybody get the Intel MacBook Airs from 2018 through 2020. Yeah, the only MacBook Air. Honestly, I was never really that big a fan of the MacBook Air in the Intel days, because the main reason people wanted you to buy it was just because it was thin and light, which I've never found that to be a great reason to buy something, because I didn't find the MacBook Pros to be that bulky or heavy in the first place. And they usually put really, really skim down, scale down Intel chips in those things. So, of course, they're very slow, like you're experiencing. I didn't really recommend anybody buy the MacBook Air until they got Apple Silicon. Once it got the M1 chip, it was like, okay, now you've got great performance, great thermals, at a good value, and it's thin and light. That's cool too. But it was more so the price that sold me on it, not so much the dimensions and stuff. So I guess my advice would be to look around for a M1 MacBook Air, which you can find on sale now. I know Apple sells them certified refurbished for about 850. And I think it was, who was it? Someone, Burkhart, I think, sent me a link to MacBook Airs recently. I think it was on Best Buy or Amazon or something. They were selling them for under $700. It was high 600s, but it was like 690 bucks for an M1 MacBook Air. And I think that's a great deal. You'll get twice the storage and probably like 12 times the processor speed. Um, but much better battery life too. So that's my go-to recommendation. I don't know your budget. So if you've got more money, I guess you could upgrade to uh I'm tempted to say M2 MacBook Air, but that's probably going to get refreshed in a couple months. But if your budget's higher, you could get a 14-inch MacBook Pro even. Um, let's see. When do you think the AirPods Max gets refreshed? I think March, May 2024. They will want people to buy USB-C iPhones so that they can advertise lossless through USB-C alongside new HomePod Mini. Well, yeah, your two statements kind of contradict each other. I mean, March to May 2024 kind of makes sense because there hasn't been a huge amount of rumors surrounding an AirPods Max update. There's been a little bit, but not much. But your second point is pointing more to the idea that they would refresh it with the iPhone, which I think is the biggest selling point of like, if there's new iPhones with Type C, wouldn't that be a perfect time to add Type C to AirPods Max? Because then everyone feels like, oh, cool. If I buy this phone and these headphones, I get lossless playback and every all the advantages of Type C, and keep them charged through your iPhone too. And the iPhone's got bigger batteries now, so they can sustain that charging, so you can listen to high fidelity audio on the go and everything. Um, but yeah, it feels like we'd know more about it. I feel like it'd be showing up in iOS code and things. Like there was references to an unreleased AirPods Pro case in I think some iOS 17 builds or something. So a lot of people are seeing tons of evidence that there's like a AirPods Pro case with Type C in the works, and that will probably launch alongside the iPhone 15. But there's not a lot of evidence that AirPods Max is like imminent to be refreshed or about to be updated. I wish it does. I hope it does, but I don't see a lot of rumors about it. So my guess is March, May sounds reasonable. I guess there'd be a spring event, and that would be a good time to do like ooh, new colors, and here's new colors for our headphones, and also it's Type C now. But yeah, I definitely think even with the transition to Type C, there will likely be some Apple products on the website still rocking Lightning that were like, come on, Apple, kill that off. Why are you still selling something with Lightning? It could totally be the case of like they're not even manufacturing them anymore. They just have a bunch of them in stock, and they're trying to sell out of the inventory that they have, and charge full price for it for those people that don't know about Type C on the iPhone 15, which is probably going to be a surprising number of people. still buying Lightning products. Um, let's see. Why hate on Lightning? I don't even use anything other than Apple because it's worse. It's just objectively worse. Um, let's see. You deserve better, especially if you only use Apple. Everything Apple should use one cable and one cable only. It gets the people going. Yes, I agree. I haven't completely watched your last stream, but did you know that you can charge the 14-inch and 16-inch MacBooks with Type C? Yeah, I know. But the MagSafe cable is braided in 2 meters, and that's what comes with my MacBook. So if I get a Type C cable, all my Type C cables are 1 meter, so they're not good for charging my laptop. So I guess after spending all this money on a MacBook, they want me to buy a different cable. And then I'm just going to have a silly, pointless MagSafe cable sitting around. I guess I could give that away or sell it or something. I don't know. But still, it's just there's too much e-waste in our lives already, too many cables, too many charge bricks, and I just wish the included ones they ship would be more useful and beneficial to our ecosystems. Like my MacBook shipped with a 140-watt charge brick, but only one port. Come on, 140 watts and you put that on one port? No, that charge brick should come with at least 3 USB-C ports, maybe more, so that I can plug everything I need into that, especially if you're taking out charge bricks and other things. iPhone doesn't ship with a charge brick. Apple Watch doesn't ship with a charge brick. I don't believe the AirPods or the Beats Studio Pros ship with a charge brick, which is fine. I'm not saying they all should ship with a charge brick. I'm just saying for the product that ships with a huge charge brick, it should have more than one port and it should come with a cable that's more versatile. They include this very nice, very expensive MagSafe 3 cable with my MacBook, but all it can do is charge my Mac. And I'd rather have, a cable that's more versatile that can charge more than one thing. Same reason I don't want Lightning on the iPhone is because the cable it comes with basically just charges my phone. I guess it can also charge AirPods and um, my Siri remote, but the Siri remote's Type C, and hopefully the AirPods switch to Type C soon. Um, let's see. When Vision Pro get better, Apple might drop the Mac. I doubt it. I mean, a lot of people thought that the Mac wouldn't make sense anymore when iPads got better and faster, and obviously that hasn't happened. So no, I think the more I think about Vision Pro, the more I think it's just going to be another option in the ecosystem, kind of like how you don't necessarily need everything in the ecosystem to get by. I know a lot of Apple sheep out there. Hasael is out there, I'm sure. He's the one who's very much into Apple ecosystem. He loves his Mac, he loves his iPhone, but he doesn't like or want an Apple Watch. He doesn't have an Apple Watch, and he's fine with that. He's like, I just don't see the point. My phone can do everything. I don't need a watch. So he gets by. He's still like a very passionate Apple sheep and is invested in Apple products, but he just doesn't need the watch. And I'm that way about the iPad. I love my ecosystem and I love all my Apple products and how they work together. But these days, I just have no use for the iPad. It's just everything I could do on an iPad, I can do on my iPhone now. Now that we have Subject Lift, that kind of killed a lot of the benefits of the iPad, and the iPad's just a little bit bigger and bulkier. All it really does is multitasking, which my MacBook can do much better. And on my iPhone, multitasking is not that bad either. So all that I'm trying to say is that just because you don't necessarily see a use or a need for Vision Pro in your ecosystem, that doesn't mean Apple won't make it. They can design products that fit a certain market and a certain niche good, even if it's not everybody. It's not like Vision Pro needs to replace something in order to be a success. I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. Is like, oh well, Apple will only release this if it replaces the iPhone, or if only release this if it replaces the Mac. I can kind of understand what you mean because I know they demoed Vision Pro working with the keyboard and mouse, so people are like, "Oh, well, it's got the M chip and it's got the keyboard and mouse support, therefore it can just replace your Mac." But they didn't. They haven't done that with the iPad, even though the iPad has got the same M series of chip. It's got keyboard and trackpad support, but it doesn't have Mac OS, and they're fundamentally looking at it differently. Like the iPad has to be a separate device. It's not trying to replace the Mac. It's just trying to be its own thing, but it has all of the same like user input as a Mac and more. So you could easily put Mac OS on the iPad, but they choose not to. And pretty much every year we just keep expecting Apple to bring more Mac OS features to the iPad or iOS features to the iPad, and they don't. So we could end up being in a similar situation where we're like, we want Vision OS to just run Mac OS, just let us dual boot Mac OS on that thing. And yet Apple's like, no, 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 that's okay. It needs to be a separate thing. It doesn't have to replace anything. It can just be the advantage for those who prefer having a spatial computing type environment And if you don't like the spatial computing environment, then you buy a Mac. And if you like it, then you buy Vision Pro. And if you want a tablet experience, then you buy the iPad. They like categories being kind of separate now. So I see what you're trying to say. Like I could hypothetically see a scenario where maybe I don't know, maybe because Vision Pro is more expensive, they're okay with it running Mac OS or something. But yeah, it technically has an M series chip, which means it could run Mac OS and then you could pair a keyboard and mouse to it and now just have the display and the headset on and now it's running Mac OS. They could do that, but considering I've been asking for them to do that on the iPad for years and they haven't done it, I'm not too hopeful that they'll do it with Vision Pro. If they do it on Vision Pro, then it'll clearly be an indication that it's a price thing, not a capability thing. The Spencer Adams channel says MagSafe 3 kind of sucks. I kind of agree with you. I've never been a MagSafe fan. I was not really a fan of it back when they had it on their Macs. And my first big MacBook purchase was the Big Mac. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Now we're gonna get McDonald's ads on this live stream. My first big MacBook purchase was the 15-inch MacBook Pro from 2016, which didn't have MagSafe, and I didn't really care or miss it. It was just I loved USB-C, and it had 4 USB-C ports, so I could charge it from either side. And especially on this trip, I've run into a ton of scenarios where I want to charge my laptop from either side. But again, I'm stuck with the whole 1 meter USB-C cables is mostly what I have. I love the cable itself that came with my MacBook, braided to 2 meters, but it's MagSafe, and I wish they'd include a 2 meter USB-C cable, but I guess we just got to buy more cables, right? Um, let's see. What I usually do with extra chargers, I put one charger plus cable at work, one at home, and another in a backpack. I don't have to worry about not having a charger everywhere. Well, I guess when you work from home, it's a bit redundant. Good night, Visualizer. Thanks for tuning in. Unboxed Vision Pro be collectible like OG iPhone? I don't think to the same caliber because Apple is so much a bigger company now than they were in 2007. And I don't remember, I'm not sure how many original iPhones there were, but what makes a collectible item, what makes it valuable is the rarity of it. So now that there's so many big Apple fanatics out there and they're all spending, 200 grand on unopened iPhones and stuff. If there was a now that there's so many people collecting and trying to buy them for museum purposes, I think they will probably be a lot of people that buy Vision Pro and don't open it. So if there's a large supply of them, then I don't think they'll be inherently that valuable. But I could be wrong. Maybe to play devil's advocate, maybe it will be valuable because they're not reportedly building that many, but I don't know how long they're going to keep the existing Vision Pro in production. Like if they stop production of it after 1 year and they only build, 350,000 of them, I guess that's kind of rare because they were only in the US and they were kind of expensive. But if they continue building Vision Pro for 2 years, 2.5 years, and they ramp up production a bit more, it probably won't be that rare. But in my head, it's not a great investment strategy if you're trying to store your worth and or your value in something. Don't put it in unopened Apple products; those can be stolen or lost in a fire or something, and you don't know what the resale market is going to be for collectibles like that, depending on how many people hold on to them or don't hold on to them. It's just kind of a gamble. I don't recommend it, and I don't know. It just also feels kind of wasteful in my opinion. Like just having devices that sit and you buy them and all this work went into them and then you just leave them sitting in a box. I don't really get it, but um Martin Gills, it's not midnight where I am, Martin Gill. It's like 9 p.m. where I am, but I'm streaming now because if I don't stream now, I'm not going to be able to stream for you won't have a live stream for like 2-3 weeks. Dark Soul says, what headphones do I use? I'm still rocking from 2019 the original AirPods Pro, although every single component of my AirPods Pro has been updated because they went broken or defective at some point, so Apple replaced them under warranty. I did not pay for Apple Care. I never pay for Apple Care. But at one point, they replaced the left AirPod. At another point, they replaced the right AirPod. And then at another point, they replaced the whole case. So even though none of this is actually from my original 2019 pair, it is still all included from my initial $250 purchase back in 2019. Still rocking them today. Very tempted to get AirPods Pro 2, but I know they have Lightning and I feel like just around the corner is a Type C refresh and on this trip, it's got me second guessing the whole concept of over-ear headphones because when I take long flights, I want to be able to plug in via headphone jack to the screen in front of me when I'm watching movies with my wife or whatever, because the included headphones the airlines give you are not very, very good. Um, yeah, I guess they do break easy, but at least you get new stuff out of it. So this is all replaced like a year and a half ago. So it feels like I got a brand new pair of AirPods for free. So I figured I might as well use them. Let's see. Miles says, just got a black titanium 45 millimeter Series 7 in fear of scratches. How's your watch been? And have your watch OS 10 opinions changed at all? No, honestly, Miles, the more I use watch OS 10, the more I kind of regret updating to it. It's a shame because most of the time watch OS comes up with some really cool, really smart updates, but this feels like the very first watch OS update that was more focused on looks and not so much function. And when I've been wearing an Apple Watch for 8 years now, geez, that sounds crazy. But yeah, I got the original Apple Watch when it came out in 2015, and there's a lot of ways we got accustomed to using it that are now gone, like the home screen grid and the control center access and the swiping side to side for watch faces and the now playing tab and the options it provided. A lot of it like looks prettier, but it's not necessarily faster or more functional. Like a lot of the time, I want to access certain apps and I have to scroll down all the way to access them now. Whereas before, I could put the apps in any orientation I wanted and I knew exactly where they were. I could swipe to the left, swipe to the right, swipe up, swipe down, and I wouldn't have to ever move very far to access the apps I want. Now, sometimes there's apps that I need to scroll all the way down for, and I can move them up, but then it pushes other apps out of the way. And I'm still, even after several months of use, I will get to the point where I'm like, oh, I need to ping my iPhone or I need to activate the flashlight. So I want to activate Control Center. So I swipe up, but now that gives you the widgets. It doesn't give you the Control Center anymore. I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to press the side button now. But I don't know. Something about pressing the side button feels a bit more clunky and time consuming than just swiping up. It's not a huge deal, but it comes up a lot. So yeah, I've been kind of disappointed with watchOS 10, I'm afraid. But if you got the titanium Apple Watch, I don't think you should have any fear of scratches. Titanium's really durable, and the titanium ones have the sapphire glass. I think you have a very, very durable watch. So congratulations, black titanium looks awesome. Do the airlines you go on even have good movie selection nowadays? Yeah, the last few I went on had quite a few movies. I watched the last one I watched, what was it? Well, there was two on my last flight. I watched The Whale, which was really highly critically acclaimed, and that was a good movie. But I had to watch it on the stupid included airline headphones, and I felt like that was kind of ruining it because it was a movie with really interesting music and audio and stuff, but I felt like I couldn't immerse myself in it. And I also watched another Academy Award winning movie. What was it? I think, oh yeah, it's called Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I hadn't seen, but I heard it was really good, so we watched that. And I thought it was a little bit overrated, but it was mildly entertaining, I guess. I didn't walk out on the movie, the in-flight movie. But yeah. Pippery 800 says, this question is very off topic, so sorry about that, but why do you think the Thunderbolt 4 can't run 5K at 120 hertz? To my understanding, it supports DisplayPort 2.0, but Apple Silicon doesn't. I think it's just a throughput thing, just like how much data you can put through. 5K at 120 hertz is a lot of data. That's a lot of pixels you're pushing and then refreshing that 120 times a second. Um, I'm not an expert on it. I don't know for sure, but I don't think just because DisplayPort 2.0 is supported, that means that it can do 5K at 120 hertz. I'm not sure exactly. I don't know if that answers your question, but my best guess is it has something to do with the number of lanes that, like pins that are inside the Thunderbolt port. But I think there might be future generations of Thunderbolt that can handle it. But honestly, I think the use case for it is pretty low. The number of people that need 5K at 120 hertz is not very high. Um, so that's maybe why it's not a huge priority to Apple, and maybe that's why we haven't seen an update to the Pro Display yet. But um, A says thoughts changed on Studio Display. No, I still feel pretty similarly about it. It's kind of expensive for what it is. I think you should consider the Studio Display for all of the perks that it unlocks. You shouldn't get it for the display itself. I mean, the panel is basically the same as a 27-inch iMac panel. You can get LG Ultrafines for much cheaper, that are almost the same panel. And they're, in my opinion, 5K and 4K are so similar. I don't think you'll notice a difference. And there's amazingly good 4K displays for pretty cheap. You can find decent 4K monitors for like less than $400 now, that are bigger than the studio display. But the main reason you should get the studio display is the chassis. The looks is pretty, and you want the integrated speakers, and you want the USB-C ports on the back, and the one cable that powers your MacBook and does data, and you want the webcam and everything. You should buy it for all the extra perks. That's the main reason to get it, not just the display itself. Because if you just need an external monitor, it's pretty expensive for what it is. But if you're going for that Apple aesthetic, everything fits and everything. It is a very beautiful monitor. The cheaper monitors probably won't be as pretty, but I don't know. Should you pay a $1,000 premium just to have a glass front and not have a logo and have symmetrical bezels all the way around? I don't know. That's kind of a big expense, but it's up to you. Some people are in a situation in life where they can afford that expense for that aesthetic, and a lot of people probably shouldn't and are not in that stage of life where that makes sense. So it just comes up to you. Do you think that extra spending, that extra money is worth it? I think for most people, probably not, but yeah, it's up to you. Randy seems to really be enjoying his, but he's in a good financial position. I'm sure he can afford it comfortably. It's not gonna like put him under or anything, that's for sure. Um, I'm glad Apple woke up again when they made the Gen 2. I've had no issues with my pair. That's great. That's great. Neil says, I'm wishing I had an excuse to get AirPods Pro 2. I've given them to family for work purposes, better phone audio. Yeah, I still wholeheartedly agree. AirPods Pro 2 are the best Apple product of 2022 by far. Nothing really comes close. There was a lot of new hardware that came out in 2022, but AirPods Pro 2 just knocked it out of the park. They were an amazing deal with amazing tech that surpassed everyone's expectations. Pretty much my only issue with AirPods Pro 2 is they still have Lightning, but other than that, they're just incredible across the board. Marngel says, do I believe the rumors that claim the 15 Pro will have USB-C Thunderbolt? I have a feeling Apple will save that next year for the 16 as an upsell feature. That's a really good theory. I can understand why you'd think that, because that does sound like something they could very easily hold off on to make next year's iPhone sound bigger. Because the more I think about it, I'm like, man, what are they going to do with the iPhone 16 to make it interesting? I I don't have much. I don't have a lot of answers. I can't think of much they can do that would make it a compelling upgrade. But yeah, I don't know. It's a reasonable theory, but at the same time, Ming Chi Kuo said that they were toying with it and ready to release it this year. So that might not be a big enough feature for people to get that excited for in the future. So maybe they'll just get it over with now. But I totally could see the regular non-pro iPhone 15s getting USB-C 2.0 speeds, and then maybe next year they get 3.0 speeds, or 3.1 or whatever. Um, yeah, I think it's too early to say. I can't say I really know, but I could see Apple going either way, um, leaving themselves room for improvement in the future. Like maybe they give it Thunderbolt 3 speeds this year, and then Thunderbolt 4 speeds next year. It's not like Thunderbolt is the end all be all. But Marngel says, I think the 15 and 15 Pro will have USB-C, just not Thunderbolt. I certainly agree the regular 15s won't have Thunderbolt. That would be so overkill and unnecessary for a phone of that price in that market. Just doesn't make sense. Um, but yeah, there hasn't been a ton of talk about that lately, but Ming-Chi Kuo, I believe, said that they were testing Thunderbolt. Discovery One says, how's the Starlink holding up in the Philippines, considering to buy it for over there as well? Curious about how it works. So I'm not in the Philippines anymore, so I can't give you an update on that. I don't think I've been in the Philippines for like the past month now. Um, yeah, maybe a little less than a month. But when I was there, it performed about exactly the same as it performed in America, which is kind of interesting. I thought maybe in a different region of the world it would perform a little differently, but it's pretty much identical. It's very good for download speeds, very fast for satellite internet, of course. The fact that you can get over 100 megabits download pretty consistently anywhere. You could be in the Philippines, you could be in America, you could probably be in Antarctica and still get over 100 megabits download, which is amazing for a satellite-based internet service. Um, the upload is still not very good. It's still only about 10 megabits up, which is, enough to sustain a video call. I did a video call while I was in the Philippines and it did okay. I had one little dropout in the hour, but that's still my consistent issue with Starlink is just the consistency of it. Like its connection stability is kind of like this. So when you start live streaming, the bit rate kind of goes, oh, it's good, and now it's bad. Oh, it's good again, because it's constantly connecting and reconnecting to these satellites. So because there's so much satellite switching going on, it's difficult to maintain a very solid signal. I think that will improve as they send up more satellites and improve the laser sat communication between each satellite. So it'll get better, but yeah, at least right now, it's got some limitations, but overall, it's pretty much the best form of satellite internet. It was definitely much faster than the 4G based home internet that we had before we set up Starlink when we were there. But it's also much, much cheaper than in the US, which was nice. It's only about $50 a month in the Philippines because of the lower, income there. So they adjust the price accordingly. Um, what is your thoughts on Apple might bring back changeable batteries? Well, I did a whole video on that, Brawl Bros. But overall, if you look into the wording of the EU law, I think that it won't compromise on the iPhone design too much. So I think it'll be mostly a good thing. They didn't say in the law that it's going to be like the old days where you just pull off the back of the phone and can just replace the battery with your fingers. The law says you can still use tools, um, and you can still have, screws and stuff to keep it sealed up. Um, it just those tools need to be more easily accessible. Um, no, they have user replaceable batteries now. It's just kind of complicated. That's the weird part. No, Apple has a whole self-service program and everything. I think what you guys are thinking of is the old days where you could just pull the back of the phone off and put in a new battery. A lot of people thought that's what the EU law was, but if you actually read the law, that's not what they're requiring. They're requiring that the tools and the battery parts and everything can't be proprietary and they have to be available for other companies and that they have to be at a reasonable price. It's kind of vague, and they're not going into effect until like 2027 or so. So we've got some time, but overall, I don't think it will actually change all that much. Um, you can require screwdrivers, but not a heat gun. Correct. Which I think you can still keep the phone fairly water resistant and fairly compact, and it can still have MagSafe and wireless charging and everything, as long as it's sealed up pretty good, which screws allow Apple to do that. Um, let's see. Apple will find a workaround. I just think people need to read the law before they jump to conclusions about what it means. I think too many people just read the headline, EU requires easily swappable batteries, and then they just picture the old fashioned, Galaxy S3 where you just pull the back off and slap in a new battery. They think, oh, they're going to force them to do that. It's like, look into the law, read it through the fine print so you understand what they're actually requiring. You read into it, it's honestly not that different from where we are today. It's just a few things with, pull tabs and heat guns and stuff. Um, let's see. I think that Apple will introduce some features that can take advantage of the high-speed USB-C connection of the new Pro iPhone. We'll see. I think it makes abundant sense to. You want people to buy the new iPhone, so might as well take advantage of those ports on there. The biggest one, in my opinion, would be charging other devices. Lightning is not bilateral, so you can't, at least in its current form, really, you can't charge another device from a device with a lightning port on it. But through USB-C, your iPad can charge your iPhone because your iPhone's lightning and your iPad is type C. So bilateral charging, or Apple will have some fancy term for it. Introducing the iPhone 15 supports Power Share or Share Power. Sounds like Air Power. Share Power lets you plug in another iPhone and send power from your iPhone into that one. So you could charge older iPhones from the iPhone 15 thanks to the Type C connector or something like that. Or my theory for a while has been if they put Thunderbolt on the iPhone, you could come up with a USB-C dock and plug it into a dock and then an external monitor. And maybe it doesn't run Mac OS, but it could run iPad OS style Stage Manager, where now with keyboard and mouse you can have, iPad style apps that can be resized and adjusted and have like big Apple version of Dex basically, because USB-C can output high video resolution to external monitors and stuff. So there's all kinds of things they could come up with USB-C, maybe some stuff I'm not thinking about, but there's a ton of accessories out there that you could tap into as well that are already prepared for Type-C. Um, the EU law seems to have a loophole that exempts phones that are waterproof from having user replaceable batteries. I can see Apple using that. I didn't see that part of the law, but yeah, overall, I just think people are over exaggerating what it means. Hey, Anna Maria says, good morning. Am I late again? Just woke up. Not terribly late. I'm late this time because I'm streaming super late at night. File transfer of large video files is another use case for USB 4. Yep. I mean, it's not really a new feature. It's just improving on an existing one because you can already transfer files via Lightning. It's just a bit slower, but yes, that would be a good one. Another one I'm hopeful for is improving upon continuity camera. So if you had Thunderbolt on the iPhone and you plug it into a Mac, I wish you could record videos straight to an external source. I don't know if the iPad does this, but iOS seems to get way more features than iPadOS does, so why not? But let's say you want to record a huge video off your iPhone. With a Thunderbolt port, you could plug in like external SSD via Type-C that has, 2 terabytes of storage, plug that into the iPhone and just say, write video to this external SSD. And then a lot of people use their iPhone for video stuff or work stuff, and sometimes they're recording for hours and hours. So maybe some people out there want to record 4K at 60 ProRes for hours and hours. So if you want to be able to do that, and you can just plug into an external drive, or better yet, you could plug in straight to your Mac. So your iPhone is being powered by your Mac, and the iPhone is just sending all of that video footage straight to the Mac. So you can bypass the import process. You don't have to use AirDrop or have to transfer a video file through that USB-C cable. You can just plug in and send the footage straight to your Final Cut timeline. So the second you stop recording, it's already in your editor. That would save so much time. That's the big feature I want them to do. It could also improve your webcam quality a lot if you just did it over USB-C instead of trying to do it wirelessly like Continuity Camera does. Um, so that could let you have, I don't know, 4K at 60 FaceTime calls, I guess, if the internet supports it. Or you could have OBS, like I'm using OBS right now to live stream. You could have really high resolution frame rates and video feeds going straight into your iPhone and record straight off of that. All kinds of advantages. I think it's just a matter of Apple supporting it via software, but I think they will. The iPhone's their bread and butter. So anytime there's a new iPhone, they usually go all out to try to make it as functional and useful as possible. So everybody wants to get the new thing. If they're able to remove the need for a heat gun, it will make repairs like 3 times easier, talking from experience. Also, it'd be nice to be able to replace the battery without removing a bracket. Yeah, I think all that's going to come. And I think that Apple was already making motions towards easier repairability. There were a lot of changes with the iPhone 14 to allow you to replace the battery from the back, not having to take the whole screen off and stuff. So there's motions that Apple's been making towards making the phone more repairable anyway. The EU is probably just going to accelerate that a little bit, but yeah, I think people were exaggerating how big of an impact that law was going to be. Um, let's see. Also, I support USB-C made for iPhone. I mean, I still think any old USB-C cable will work. That's how it works right now with Apple products. You don't need a made for Mac USB-C cable for your MacBooks. You don't need a made for iPad USB-C cable for your iPad. So I see no reason why they're going to require you to get a made for iPhone USB-C cable, but there will probably be some made for iPhone USB-C protocols to ensure certain charging speeds or certain data transfer speeds, perhaps they might require. But that doesn't mean the non Apple USB-C cables won't work. It just means they won't be as fast or capable, but they'll still be functional. Um, would I recommend waiting for a 14 Pro discount or buying the iPhone 15? Uh, honestly, if you if you don't care about the port on your phone at all, I suppose the 14 Pro discount will probably be a much better deal because the 15 Pro is rumored to get more expensive. It's made of titanium, thinner bezels. That usually contributes to a higher price. Um, I don't know if the regular 15 Pro will go up in price, but a lot of rumors are pointing to the 15 Pro Max at least going up in price. But the main issue I have with recommending the 14 Pro is it feels like a bad time, in my opinion, to be spending a meaningful amount of money on any device that's still Lightning because once Type-C is confirmed, it's not confirmed yet, but it's sounding pretty likely. But once Type-C is confirmed for the iPhone, Apple's probably going to be working on transitioning everything else away um, from Lightning as soon as possible, which means, less accessories, less things are going to support Lightning, and you're just going to have a dated connector. It'd be kind of like buying the iPhone 4S after the 5 came out and still using 30 pin. Uh, but I guess a lot of people just already have Lightning cables, so they intend on still using them, or maybe you use MagSafe charging or wireless charging anyway, so you don't care. I'm not saying no one should buy it. I'm just saying um, it's rocking a dated connector. It's like a 10-year-old port at this point. It's over 10 years old now, and I think its time is limited. So if you're buying a phone intending to hold on to it for a long time and you want it to be future proof with the more recent standards and stuff, I think that the switch from Lightning to Type C is a pretty big one. Apple's only changed the charge port on the iPhone once. The original iPhone had 30 pin, and then the iPhone 5 had Lightning, and that's it. So this is the first time in like 10 years that Apple is actually changing the charge port. So I don't think it's something they take very lightly. I don't think they're going to go portless in a couple of years. I think that if they're switching to Type C this year, they're probably going to keep it for quite some time, which is why spending, even $800 or $900, whatever, on a 14 Pro now feels like kind of spending a lot of money for dated hardware. But if you're I was one of those people who bought the 4S before the 5 came out. I got news for you, Margell. Everybody bought the 4S before the 5 came out. I think maybe you meant after. That would explain the chat message more. But yeah, pretty much everybody who got the 4S got it before the 5. Um, do iPhones charge at 30 watts? I don't think so. I think they cap out at like 20 or something. I don't think they go much faster. But USB-C would definitely be a good time to up the charging speed because Type C has more channels. It can definitely handle. I think they've tested USB-C to handle up to like 200 watts or something like that. Let me go to the compare page. Okay, you meant after. Thank you. That makes a lot more sense. Thank you for clarifying. Let me look here. I was checking. Yeah, I was on the compare page. Fast charge capable, up to 50% charge in 30 minutes with 20 watt adapter. So I believe testing conducted by Apple. USB-C power adapters. I guess they've tested them with other wattage bricks, but I think the iPhone itself caps out at around 20 watts. I know that that's not the limit of Lightning, though, because I believe there were iPad Pros in 2017 that supported faster charging. Like the last iPad Pro to have Lightning. Where is that? Oh, this is the iPhone page. 1 second. Let's compare. What's the fastest charging Lightning connector? Let's figure that out. It'd be the 10.5 inch, or maybe it was the 12.9 inch. Second gen. Yeah, that's the biggest iPad ever. Big bezels, big screen. Um, Lightning connector. Oh, it doesn't talk about the fast charging capabilities. Um, Martin says it maxes out at 27 watts. That sounds believable to me. I don't recall ever hearing about an iPad getting much more than 30. So that might be the limits of Lightning. Type C, I think, has gone over 100 watts in laboratories and on some weird, crazy Chinese phones that are like, I need it to fast charge in 2 seconds. I don't know if that's good for the battery though, but it's obviously possible for the port to handle it. It's more of a thermal issue, I think. Do I think Apple will update the port on the AirPods 2, or I have to accept the harsh reality that they will move on even if they are the most comfortable AirPods? Ooh, that's a good question, yeah, because I really like the comfortability of AirPods 2 as well. But yeah, they haven't really updated them or refreshed them with much. Did they even give them MagSafe support? I think they just gave them wireless charging. Let us check while we're on Apple's website. Sometimes I got to remind myself. Yeah, they never got past the H1 chip, which is what they were at the beginning. And so battery, lightning charging case. Where's the... They don't talk about the charging case charging capabilities, do they? Yeah, it just says lightning charging case, and then MagSafe charging case with speaker and lanyard loop. Oh yeah, didn't they take away the wireless charging option for AirPods 3? Oh yeah, it's still here. So this one you can get with just a lightning charging case, or you can get with a MagSafe charging case, which increases the price. But then, yeah, so they never, for the fact that they never gave the MagSafe charging capability to AirPods 2, I'm sad to say they will probably either just discontinue AirPods 2 or keep selling it with Lightning. I doubt that they will offer a Type-C case for it, I'm afraid. Um, USB PD spec maxes at 100 watts, I believe. Don't know if any iPad support. No, iPad definitely doesn't. But I don't think you need a phone to charge that fast anyway. But we've got a ways to go before Apple Max is out of that. Maybe the iPhone 15 will support like 50 watts, and they could say fastest charging iPhone ever or something. If you were wanting to get into the Apple ecosystem on a budget, what would be a good iPhone to start with? I've done a video on that, but I guess it was a few months ago. It was called the Apple ecosystem for $500 or something. Um, Good phone to start with. I mean, it really just depends on your budget. I don't know what you mean by on a budget. If your budget is $800, I'll have a different answer for you than if your budget is $400, you know. Um, Honestly, I think refurbished 12 mini is not a bad place to start. I love the mini iPhones. I think they're underrated. Um, Let me see what certified refurbished honestly is a great place to start. If you just need to buy a brand new iPhone and that's what you insist on, I'll say 13 mini. Honestly, I think more people should consider going refurbished because all iPhones are so similar these days. But if I just go to the iPhone section here, what do we got? iPhone 12, 650. Yeah, these aren't very good. Certified refurbished doesn't have any great iPhones right now. I think all the good ones were sold. I love how they still have a jet black 7 Plus, even though that hasn't been on this page in forever. Um, but yeah, that 12 mini's a good place to start. Martin says power delivery has a new standard that can take up to 240 watts. Our MacBooks don't even support that, and our MacBooks already charge really fast. Um, I bought a brand new Apple Watch Series 6 44 millimeter cellular space gray for 250. That's not bad. That's a good price. AirPods Pro 2 is the best value, to be honest. Yeah, I think it explains why AirPods Pro is the best selling pair of headphones. Or at least it's the best selling AirPods, which is probably the best selling headphones. But do you know anything on solid state batteries and what you would see in the future of technology in, say, 10 years? Solid state batteries have been hypothetical, and people have been saying they're around the corner for the past 15 years, which is why I'm hesitant to believe anything reported on solid state batteries. From what I can tell, they are amazing in lab tests, but anytime someone tries to mass produce them, they can't do it, which is unfortunately in the consumer tech space all that matters. If you make a battery that never dies and never needs to be charged, but you can only build one of them, it's kind of useless. The only kind of battery tech that is actually meaningful and impactful to our daily lives is one that is scalable, one that you can build at high volume, because then everybody can use it. But if you can just build one of something and you can't mass produce it, then it's not that useful. And that's kind of how I feel about solid state batteries. I remember reading about those when I was in middle school, which was many years ago. And Toyota's been bragging about it since 2009, 2008. They say, oh, we have this solid state battery tech that charges faster and holds more capacity. And then they say, oh, we'll come out with a vehicle or something that has that in the future. And then they never do. And they're doing the same thing now in 2023. They're saying, oh, we're working on solid state batteries that are way faster charging and way better range and stuff. But they don't know how to mass produce it, which is kind of the most important part. You could have the best battery tech in the world, but if you can't mass produce it, it doesn't really make an impact. So I don't have many thoughts or opinions on it. And then he said, what would you see the future of technology in, say, 10 years? All technology, that's a big question. I don't know how to answer that. Um, but I think you'll get a lot of the same. I think we'll get more and more incremental improvements on phones, better battery, better camera, bigger camera bump, better displays, brighter displays. We'll get thinner laptops, better battery, faster, better screen. We'll just get a lot of iteration. I think the more interesting side of tech that's going to change a lot over the next 10 years is electric vehicles. I don't feel that tech is going to change too much for laptops, tablets, and phones and watches and stuff. Maybe we'll see some interesting developments in terms of spatial computing like Vision Pro and stuff, but I think that's going to be a slow burn. I don't think it's going to catch on super fast. You might see more people at airports wearing headsets and flicking their fingers around. But I don't think it'll kill off the phone. I don't think the headset will kill off that many things. I think it'll be kind of a new market segment. What's going to be fascinating to see is how many more EVs come on the roads, and how different they look to prioritize aerodynamics and energy efficiency. And that's why Aptera is the most exciting company in my head. If you want to talk about exciting upcoming technology, yeah, Margel's talking graphene batteries as well. That's another hype word in the There's a lot of BS in the battery community of like, oh, but Drew, this next big thing is around the corner, and these new batteries are going to change the world, and then they can't mass produce it. It all comes down to that. Um, yeah, Ian, I've done a reaction video to that video on this channel. Look up Apple Sheep reacts to Apple sucks and it's your fault. I think he took down that video though. I don't think it's up anymore. So the only way to watch it is through my reaction video, which is kind of funny. That's a really old video though. I don't watch tech channels for the record. I spend way too much time making tech content to the point that by the time I'm done making tech content, the last thing I want to do is watch more tech content. Although if there's a new tech product that's kind of exciting and interesting, I'll watch some new stuff. Like I'll admit, I have been watching a lot of tech channels talk about Vision Pro and Vision OS, channels that I normally don't watch. I've started watching, and I tune into Snazzy Labs from time to time. Um, he did a video on the Mac Pro, so I watched that, and I watch MKBHD just because I think he's like the best tech YouTuber ever. So I'll watch his stuff, but yeah, for the most part, majority of the content I watch is electric vehicle stuff. Do I still have the AirPods 2? Do you use it more than the Pro? I didn't find the Pro more comfortable and I opted for AirPods 3. I still have the AirPods 2, but I didn't take them with me on this trip because I spend a lot of time on flights and in noisy environments. So the active noise cancellation was very important to me on this trip. So I just took my AirPods Pro, but my AirPods 2 are at home and my wife uses them from time to time. Um, I do still find them more comfortable though, for the record. I think AirPods 2 fit my ears better than AirPods Pro. Let's see. It's too bad the iPhone refurbished store is not available in Sweden. If you want to buy refurbished, you have to go to third-party stores. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think that Sweden has some inherent disadvantage. Like the Apple certified refurbished store, honestly, is not that great. Like I wouldn't recommend any of these. $660 for an iPhone 12. No, that's not worth it. So I'm sure there's authorized resellers in wherever country you're at that will give you a decent phone in good condition for a lower price, and whatever that may be in your country, I think it's probably worth the cost savings. Um, let's see. I'm still using my 10s Max and it's still running great, although I will probably upgrade soon after the 15 series comes out and when I get more money. Don't feel like you need to rush yourselves. If your phone is still working, I encourage people to hold on to it. You know, I'm still rocking the iPhone SE2. I'm surprisingly doing well. It hasn't conked out on me yet. I did have a pretty serious system crash the other day where like the phone was unusable for 10-15 minutes. Luckily, I wasn't doing anything too important, so it didn't matter. But I had to do a hard reset, and what was scary was even the hard reset wasn't fixing the problem. So I was like, "Oh no, did iOS 17 beta just brick my phone? That's not good." But it didn't brick it. It just needed a few minutes to think about what it was doing. It took a while, but it worked out. Um, but yeah, I'm at 78% battery health, and I'm still holding strong. It hasn't changed since I got it though. It still says what's it called? 78%. It's still there. So, the more you wait, the better deal you'll get. So, if you buy an iPhone 15 brand new, um it's gonna cost a whole lot more than if you just wait 6 months and you find them on sale and stuff. Let's see. When Apple eventually makes a display with no notch slash hole punch, will Dynamic Island stick around or go the way of the iPod? Who was it? I think it was Max Weinbach on Twitter. He had this theory of how Apple was going to handle it. I think it involved the little camera hole appearing when you were using the camera or Face ID or whatever. It's, an animation for unlocking and everything. But then when you're watching a video or playing a game in landscape, you're less likely to need the camera. So that's when the display just overtakes the lens and you don't see it anymore. Um, I think they'll do something like that. I don't think they'll get rid of Dynamic Island. I think they'll come up with a way for it to disappear and basically anytime you put the phone in landscape, the cutout will go away, but then the animations and expanding stuff of island will still work in portrait mode, I think, but it'll go away when you want it to and stay there when you want it to. Um, what are your thoughts on the new Beat Studio Pros? They're great. They look awesome, but they make me more interested in an AirPods Max refresh because I'm pretty sure that the Beat Studio Pros will probably still have some inherent limitations in terms of audio quality, comfort, and build quality compared to the AirPods Max. Um, yeah, I'm enjoying iOS 17. I don't think there's a ton of well, there's some pretty decent new features, but the biggest one for me that they didn't talk about during the keynote is the AirDrop updates. Like when you airdrop something to the phone now, you just get a little drop down notification. It doesn't have to open the whole Photos app every time you airdrop a photo to it, which has been really, really helpful for me because I design all my video thumbnails off my phone. So to not have to jump to the Photos app and then jump back to my video thumbnail app saves so much time. I love that feature because I use that on my phone all the time. Nightstand mode, I don't use all that much, but it might be because I'm traveling all the time, so I don't have a really consistent charging setup. I'm always traveling and charging in weird places and different environments. Maybe I'll use it more when I get home. Um, and a lot of name drop features I haven't been able to test because I'm the only phone in my household that has iOS 17. Um, and the voice changing the voice AI feature is cool, but the iPhone SE didn't get that, so I didn't get all the new exciting features. But that's just what happens when you use an older iPhone. Let's see. Neil says he still has a 12 Pro Max. No reason to replace it. I'm missing 5G standalone, and I want Wi-Fi 7 in the future. What do you mean 5G standalone? Your phone has 5G. What does Wi-Fi 7 really do for you, though? I know people like to see the tech specs. Ooh, that's the higher number, but what does it actually like translate to? What do you benefit from Wi-Fi 7? I'm not saying you're wrong. I genuinely want to know. Um, let's see. I had the oh, Anna Maria says, in my iPhone 11 is awesome. Had it for 4 years in January. I'm planning to upgrade to the 15 this year, but I might wait until Christmas or so and then buy either a Pro or the basic one. That's cool. I hope you get a good price on it. Yeah, 4 years is pretty average, I would say, for most people. That's how long they hold on to their phone. But that number is growing every year. Less and less people are upgrading because they don't see a need to. Let's see. Discovery One says I had the 13 mini, which worked great, except the battery life, especially after a year when it degraded more. Now I have the 14 Plus, and many will disagree, but it is a really great phone. It's not that the 14 Plus isn't a great phone. I just think it's too expensive for what it is. Like, I think the 13 Pro Max is an objectively better phone, which you can find for cheaper than a 14 Plus. So I would just say there's nothing really wrong with the 14 Plus other than the price. Um, so I would recommend people buy a cheaper phone that does all the same things and more. Um, but some people just don't want to buy secondhand, I guess. But I feel like you're missing out by doing that. Do you see Apple making a mini iPhone again? The next SE is supposed to be around 6.1 inches. So I guess on a regular refresh, maybe the first time they announce 5 iPhones in the lineup. Usually the SE never comes out with the flagship phones. That's almost always a spring release. I do believe they will release an SE4 of some kind, especially with the USB-C transition. That might motivate them to drop it sooner rather than later. Um, but I'm afraid the mini iPhones just didn't sell that well relatively. They still sold, they were still in the like top 10 best-selling phones globally, but compared to all the other iPhones, they didn't sell that well. So unfortunately, the market didn't uh, speak well for the success of mini iPhones, but um, usually what Apple does with the SE is recycle an old design that they've been mass producing for a while. They tend to not make a brand new design for the SE. So it's more likely that if they do an SE4, it'll just look something like an iPhone 12, but with Type C and maybe one camera or something. Um, I'd actually go with a Max phone for the first time. I would love a USB-C iPhone SE for the record. Man, that's a lot of letters to keep track of. Universal Serial Bus Type C iPhone Special Edition. Oh, Internet phone. That's what iPhone stands for. Assuming if Apple never makes another iPhone mini or the SE4 doesn't adopt a 13 mini body, then I might actually go with a Max phone for the first time. Only reason I've considered the 15 Plus is just because the battery life on it is probably going to be great. It's based on the rumored battery capacity specs, it will most likely have the best battery life of any iPhone. Um, and I like that idea when I'm traveling. Reconnection successful. Okay, stabilize. I think we're back. Sorry about that. Spectrum Wi-Fi went out. Man, it went an hour and 10 minutes without lagging out. That's pretty good. Um, yeah. Sorry about that. Spectrum pixels have been replaced by Spectrum pauses, I guess. This live stream broken by Spectrum Internet. Um, let's see. Eric Gonzalez, happy to see you in the chat. Thanks for tuning in. Um, on my trip, I have a big for all the travel time between chargers. I have this big brick of a doozy phone, which can last like feels like a week or two on one charge, so that's refreshing. But if in the future, I probably don't want to travel with multiple phones. So whatever my next iPhone is, I might prioritize making it just a super long battery life so that I can go potentially, several days or maybe a week without charging it. That would be cool. Um, Sorry, it wasn't on your end. I'm not in the Philippines and I'm not on Starlink for the record, but Starlink would have more dropouts than this would, unfortunately. Uh, let's see. Ian says the first two SE releases were between 4 years, so maybe 2025. I think sooner personally because the SE2 to SE3 was only 2 years, which proves that there's not a consistent upgrade cycle for the SE. It means that Apple's not waiting 4 years for every refresh. Um, they could wait 4 years, they could wait 6 years, or they could wait 1 year. I just think the main reason it makes a lot of sense to release one. I know the rumors aren't really pointing to this, but I still think it makes sense for Apple to release an SE4 in 2024 is because once USB-C is out, on the iPhone, you're going to want to transition the iPhone lineup to all USB-C as quickly as possible because I think a lot of people are going to be less inclined to get a Lightning iPhone if they know that Type-C is the future and that's what Apple's moving everything to, and they're going to start pulling a lot of Lightning accessories and Lightning components from their stores and saying, "Oh no, not Lightning anymore. Everything's moving towards Type-C." So to get that transition, kind of like how they did with 5G, they launched the iPhone 12 series, and those were all 5G. And then they launched the SE3, which was 5G. And then they pretty quickly got rid of the iPhone 11 and 10R and stuff because those didn't have 5G. So now they can say all the iPhones in the lineup have 5G support. I think they might do something similar with Type C. So they might not change a lot about the SE, or it might not be a very exciting upgrade. It could just be like an iPhone 12 looking thing. Or who knows? Maybe they keep this design language. It's just literally the home button and forehead and chin. It just happens to have USB-C on the bottom now. Maybe they'll do that with the SE4. I don't know. For people who still want the home button, there you go. You have an option, I guess. Um, Eric says, I'm considering skipping the 15 and waiting for the 16 Ultra. It'll probably be better. But you could also skip the 16 and get the 17 Ultra. Or you could skip the 17 and get the 18 Ultra. Just, you can keep skipping. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying there's always something better around the corner. Um, but yeah, that's why I encourage people just hold on to your old tech as long as you can, because the longer you wait, the better upgrade you'll get. Um, let's see. Perhaps I'll buy the Unihertz Jelly instead of an iPhone Mini. What? You mean the iPad Mini? Is that what the Unihertz is? Um, let's see. Do I think the 64 gigabytes is still enough? My 10s Max is 64 gigs and it's almost filled up. It feels like the modern day 16. Yeah, I'm on 64 gigs too, and I'm filling it up all the time. It just depends on the person. I know some people out there that almost never take pictures or videos. Pretty much all they have in their camera roll is screenshots and memes and GIFs and stuff. To those people, 64 gigs is probably fine. To others who are taking videos and pictures all the time, that's probably not enough. It's not an objective answer, but yeah, it just depends on the person. These days, it does feel like with the size of our media files and everything that it's getting kind of small, especially when iOS is taking up like 9, 10 gigs now. It's definitely taking up more of the phone than the days when, your phone had 16 gigs of storage. I don't think the OS was occupying 10 gigs. That would have left you with 6 gigs. Um, Plan to upgrade from a 12 to a 15 Pro or Pro Max, but the newest rumors I'm not quite sure, especially because EU is always way more expensive than USA. Yeah, there's the advantage of waiting. Honestly, I don't love that they removed the physical SIM tray on the iPhone 15 series. And I'd be more okay with switching to eSIM if they could replace it with something. But what annoys me the most about the removal of eSIM, sorry, the removal of the physical SIM, it's not the same thing as removing the headphone jack, because the difference is they're still selling iPhones with the physical SIM tray in other countries. And those iPhones are not missing out on any features. It's not like the eSIM iPhone gets better battery life or a better camera or anything. When you buy the eSIM iPhone 14, you're just getting more plastic in the phone. They take out that physical SIM and replace it with nothing, which feels kind of wasteful. It feels like you're getting the dummy version of it. I guess it's cheaper because Apple raised the prices overseas, but I'm I'm not really interested in buying a new iPhone ever again at this point. I think I always want to go secondhand refurbished because all the iPhones are so similar anyway. So, and I tend to travel more these days. So, I've got family in Australia and we've got friends that we want to visit in Europe. So, at some point when I travel overseas again, could even just be visiting Canada. I think I don't know if it'll be in the near term future. I'll probably wait a while until resale value goes down a bit for the iPhone 15 series, and they've been available for a while. But at some point, I'd like to get a like. I think my dream case scenario, whenever my SE2 dies, I'm just going to keep using this until it doesn't work, basically. But whenever my SE2 dies, I definitely want an iPhone with Type C because I'm sick of Lightning. Um, but when I'm visiting someone or family members overseas, I'll probably try to get an iPhone 15 Plus secondhand so it's cheaper, but so that way it has great battery life and it has the physical SIM tray so that I can still take my physical SIM out and review other phones and put them back in and have Type C, have Dynamic Island, have a great camera, and then just probably try to hold on to that iPhone as long as possible. That might be the first phone that I just like I don't upgrade, I just swap out the battery in time. Your what 8-minute reminder that Spectrum internet is not reliable. There you go. Anyway, exchangeable border case. No, I didn't see that patent. But most Apple patents don't turn into real products, so I would not trust patents as a form of leaking. Anyway, but I think my dream case scenario in the future, my next iPhone, whenever that will be, I realize like, okay, I don't mind big, heavy, thick phones. It doesn't really bother me too much. And I love the battery life that this offers. So if I could get a 15 plus which has the best battery life in an iPhone, and then I'll get like a battery case to go with it. It'll probably still be thinner than the douchey phone, than this brick. And while the battery won't be as crazy good, I think the 15 Plus is rumored to have like over 4,900 milliamp hours, and I've seen some battery cases for the 14 Plus that are like 10,000 milliamp hours. So put those together with Apple Silicon, and I'll have close to 15,000 milliamp hours with a really efficient chip and a 60 hertz display, so the display doesn't consume that much power. That might be a great long battery life singular phone solution in the future. It won't be as good as the 22,000 milliamp hours that I have on this phone, but it's probably less efficient because it's an Android chip and it's 120 hertz instead of 60 and whatever. But um, only travel in EU, so I don't need to switch SIMs. But without a SIM tray and traveling overseas sounds annoying. Totally understandable. Yeah, I was just the friends we're staying with here right now. We're complaining to me about that. My friend, she got a 14 Pro, and she was very she travels a lot. She was going through Europe and Northern Africa, and she was like, I realized once I got there that this phone doesn't have a physical SIM, and there's some countries I went to that don't support eSIM, so I couldn't switch between SIMs on the phone, and that was really frustrating. So I was like, yeah, I guess that sucks. If you didn't know about that change, you probably wouldn't run into that scenario until you actually got there, and then you're like, oh crap, this is a problem. What if the other iPhone 15s remove the SIM tray in overseas market? Well, then I'll just accept it as reconnecting. That's so weird. I found an iOS 17 bug. I turned off the Wi-Fi on my phone via control center, and then it immediately reconnected to the Wi-Fi. So I had to go into settings and turn it off. I don't know if that's affecting the internet or something, but Yeah, it's dropping out a lot. I apologize. Man, this will be the apology live stream, I guess. Hopefully it can stabilize here. But yes, I was in the Philippines a couple weeks ago. If they remove the SIM tray for all markets, then I'll feel a little bit better because that'll probably mean that, okay, now they can use that space in the phone for other things like better battery or better camera, whatever. What's weird about doing it this half approach where the US doesn't get the physical SIM, but everybody else does, is it means that the US iPhone removes the physical SIM and replaces it with nothing. Um, and I travel, so I care about having a physical SIM, and also I review other phones. So I like being able to just pull out the physical SIM and put it in something else to keep it easy and simple. Um, I'm not one of those people that just gets my eSIM and then leaves it in the phone and just leaves it at that and doesn't touch it again. Um, So as long as they are making some of the flagship iPhones with a physical SIM, I'll still probably want to take those because like I'd rather have the SIM tray than have just a piece of plastic taking up space in the phone. It'd be different if it was like, okay, if your phone is eSIM, then you get better battery life or an improved camera or something. That would be different, but that's not what they're doing. Um, let's see. 10s is getting iOS 17. Yes. Have you tried putting a new battery in the oldest supported iPhone and seeing how the experience is? The newest iPhone compared to oldest iPhone stability, not speed. No, but I want to eventually get to that point. Like, I want to see how buggy and how bad the experience is with the SE2, and then see if replacing the battery fixes the issues in the future. I'd be curious. But no, I haven't done it myself yet. The AirPods Max 2 will probably be miles better than the first version since first generation tech is usually the worst. Well, I mean, it's a general trend that the newer tech tends to outperform older tech. So the iPhone 14 outperforms the 13, and the 15 will outperform the 14. So yeah, obviously the first generation is going to be worse than all the others because it's the oldest. Um, I had that bug too. I kept trying to turn off the Wi-Fi without it actually making it. I had to reboot. Oh, that's weird. It's an odd bug. Well, it seems like when I go into settings and turn it off that way, that seemed to get rid of it. Luckily. Um, let's see where. Sorry. Apologize. Okay, it's reconnected now. I don't know. Should I? I don't want to end the stream. I'd like to keep streaming, but I just feel so bad. I don't know what else to do. The internet keeps cutting out. I tested the other internet, and this one was definitely faster. Well, there's like two Wi-Fi networks. The people we're staying with doesn't name them 5G and 2.4G, so I don't know which is which. But the one I'm connected to now definitely had much faster speeds. So I don't know what else to try. Um, Did I check out the new Beats? Well, I did a whole video on them. I think they look great on paper, but I'm guessing it's the execution where they show their shortcomings compared to AirPods Max. But they still, at least on paper, are far superior than AirPods Max. They got Type C, they got the headphone jack. The big winner in my book is they're $200 cheaper and they come with the needed accessories. So it's more like they're $250 cheaper, basically, because they come with a headphone jack cord. They come with a USB-C cord that also supports power and audio pass-through and lossless. So they all look great on paper, but I don't think it's just as simple as, okay, they both have active noise cancellation. They both have transparency mode. Like, I think there's a bit more to it than that. Like, AirPods Max probably have far superior transparency mode and far superior noise cancellation. So there's still reasons to wait and I think hope for a big refresh with AirPods Max 2, hopefully rocking the H2 chip and all of the lossless support and the Type C and the um, lower price included accessories and that kind of stuff. It'd be interesting if the iPhone SE line ends up being the only line with physical SIM. You know what? That might be a great reason to stick with the SE, to be honest with you. Good night, Margel. Thanks for tuning in. I don't expect everybody to tune in. I know it's super, super late. But sometimes it's nice for me to stream to the people of the world that are not in the American time zones. I know that it's a more reasonable hour for a lot of people, but Omer K says, will the iPhone 15 Pro's price go up in your opinion? I think so. I think it's dangerous to assume they won't, when people have the expectation, oh, the price will be the same. They won't up the price. And then they do, you'll be disappointed. But if you expect them to up the price, then you won't be disappointed, I feel like. But definitely just from a material standpoint, the iPhone 15 is switching to titanium, which is objectively a more expensive material than stainless steel, which is what they have been using. So I think just from a manufacturing cost perspective, it's going up in price. And this is also the first device probably that Apple's ever made that's going to use 3 nanometer, which is probably more expensive in the beginning um, for the silicon on the inside. And they're probably switching, at least on the Pros, to a higher data transfer speed Type C port, which is more expensive than using the same old fashioned Lightning connector they've been using for a long time. So yeah, I don't see why the prices would stay the same, honestly. I could see them upping the storage, though, to compensate for it. So people could say, well, in a way, the price didn't go up because if you bought the 256 gig iPhone 14, then nothing, it's really the same price. They just actually remove the 128 gig option. They might do something like that. Usually, when there's a price hike, they tend to up the storage to make you feel like you're getting a better deal. But what's funny is that the price of those NANDs, the little, SSDs on the inside of your phone, they almost cost nothing different to build. Like the 128 gig NAND is almost identical in price to the 256 gig NAND. It's this tiny little microchip they put on there. The only reason they put a big price difference between those storage options is just for better margins. So the low storage option has thinner margins than the higher storage options, but for the most part, it's a difference of like a couple dollars basically to put in a 1 terabyte NAND versus a 256 gig NAND. But by stretching out the profitability and stretching out the margins across the different storage configurations, they're able to hit lower price points than they'd like on the low end and hit higher price points than they could probably get otherwise with the higher storage options. So it's mostly just a marketing thing. The reason the storage prices are an extra $50 or an extra $100 or an extra $200 or whatever. Um, Kay says, I'm so hype about the Beats with the USB lossless audio. I just hate it doesn't have active noise cancellation while doing so. That is bizarre. I wonder why they can't do both. But uh, what's it called? Exclusions like that, where they leave out certain features, is what makes me think they've left some room for improvement on the Beat Studio Pros for the AirPods Max to be the ultimate over-ear headphones available. They will probably support the lossless playback and support transparency mode and active noise cancellation on top of that. The H2 chip will make sure they have the best noise cancellation of any pair of headphones ever, the best transparency mode ever. Um, like I think that all of the limitations, like how Beats don't have the automatic device switching, and Beats Studio Pros, when you take them off, they don't pause. You have to pause it manually on the computer. I think that uh, AirPods Max will address all of those limitations at probably a higher price. I don't think it'll be. Um, it probably won't be $350, but maybe they lowered it to 500 instead of 550. That could make it a little bit more digestible. I could see Apple pulling some pricing shenanigans where they still make you pay extra to get the headphone jack cable, or um, they they don't include a good maybe the travel case is still not very good. They insist on you using the smart case, which turns it off because there's no power button or something. They could still keep some of that shenanigans, but I've always said from the beginning with AirPods Max, I would be okay with the idea of $600 headphones. They just have to be like perfect in some way. And the problem with AirPods Max was they weren't quite perfect in everything. They were always, I mean, they were really good at certain things, but then you had these limitations. Like you have to use Lightning to charge it. There was no way around that. It had to be Lightning. And that really, really bugged me. It was like if they were just Type C and they pitched it as more of a Mac accessory so that you could do lossless playback through the Mac and use it when you're mixing music with Logic, but then also use it as noise canceling headphones on the go. I could get behind $600 for the price, but they they had too many like compromises, too many that didn't support lossless, and they didn't include the headphone jack. I don't mind if it doesn't include the headphone jack cable, but it just means that the included USB-C cable that charges it also has to do audio pass through because most of our devices are going to have Type C anyway. Um, too many like corners cut for me to recommend them, but they're so close. It's a love-hate relationship I have with them because I really love the design. I think they look beautiful. I think they're super comfortable on your head. They're very, very gentle despite being so heavy. They fit so nice on my head, at least. I never got sore on my the top of my head like I do on pretty much any other pair of headphones. And just by looking at Beats Studio Pros, I'm pretty confident I'll have the same discomfort issues, which I read in the reviews people said is still there compared to AirPods Max. I love the build quality. I love the digital crown. The digital crown is such a better way to do volume than doing some trackpad controls or clicking buttons like other over-ears. So it's not 3 a.m. where I am. I'm in a time zone that I guess no one else is watching from, but I know it's late. But I'm live streaming right now because this is the one time I'm available to live stream in the next couple weeks. So I figured I might as well do one now because I'm probably not going to stream for a while. Um, let's see. Anna Maria says, I hope they don't hike the prices too much outside of the US. The Pro iPhone is already too expensive, but I'm budgeting for one anyway. I just say wait, just don't get it on launch day and you'll get it for cheaper. Um it's 4 a.m. and you're going to bed. Geez, you should have gone to bed a while ago, CTF. Let's see. I hope that Apple will make an SE Pro that what? That is a 15 Pro without the dynamic island. Why would you make a Pro SE? That doesn't SE usually means like lower end, cheaper. It's like making an Apple Watch SE Ultra. It doesn't make sense. You want a 15 Pro without the dynamic island? Is that just a 14? No, it's just an iPhone 14, but I guess that has lightning. So I think what you're saying is you want an iPhone with Type C that doesn't have dynamic island. I wouldn't call that an SE Pro, but yeah. Um, I am in the States, but I'm in Maui, so I'm away from the continental United States. I've noticed that there's been a lot of YouTube channels that downgraded from the Pro phones and get the 13 mini and love it. Do you think the mini will come back at all? Well, YouTubers doing one thing is cool, but the sales speak for themselves. Apple has a better metric on how well the mini phones sold, and I don't think the YouTubers downgrading is going to influence their decisions. I hope they bring it back. Apple has brought back things before, like they brought back the Magic Keyboard, they brought back the function keys, they brought back MagSafe for the Macs and HDMI and the SD card slot. Um, what else? They brought back the Plus iPhones, where you got rid of the 8 Plus, but now they brought back the 14 Plus. So it's not impossible. I hope they bring it back. Honestly, I would kind of love it if they made a mini phone with USB-C. Honestly, if that starts to become a rumor, like if Ming Chi Kuo or Mark Gurman or something comes out and says that the iPhone 16 series is going to offer a mini size with Type C, that would probably convince me to not get any of the 15s. I'd be like, oh, then I'm freaking waiting. I'll wait till the 16 series if I can get a mini iPhone with USB-C because I love those mini iPhones, man. I like the size of the SE too. Um, this is a good form factor. I've gotten used to it, but only issue with the smaller phones is battery. But I don't think that's as big a deal as a lot of people make it out to be. There's ways to accommodate for that with battery banks and chargers wherever you are. And especially now that I have a charger in my car, that's usually when my phone in the old days would drain its battery the fastest is when I was driving. But now that when I get in my car, I just put my phone on the wireless charger and it's charging. I don't really care too much. Take care, Anna Maria. Thanks for tuning in. And good night, Spencer. Everybody's signing off. That's okay. Yes, the SE sells much better than the 13 mini, but that's because it's way cheaper. And if you could magically make the 13 mini the same price as the SE, maybe it would sell better, but I don't think it's that simple. If you found a way to make the 13 mini $400, then you probably have a way to make the SE $200, in which case that'll probably sell much better. The OLED panels in the mini iPhones are just so much more expensive than the basic cheap LCD panels that they put in the regular iPhone SE. They did bring back the HomePod. That's another good example. We thought that thing was dead and wasn't going to get updated. It was this $350 really expensive brick and then really overkill sound quality. And then they didn't touch it for years and years and years. And then randomly one day we wake up and they updated it with a new design, new tweeter array, new woofer, new silicon, new display. They just changed about everything about it, and they kept the price high, which was really confusing, but they brought it back. So it's not unlike Apple to bring back something that doesn't necessarily sell all that well. So that's why there's a chance, but unfortunately there's been no rumors or leaks to suggest that Apple's interested in reviving the mini iPhone, um, which is a shame because I wish they would. But oh well, you can't win them all. Hopefully, with enough time. Omar, it's 11 a.m. for you. Yeah, I figured we should. It's good to kind of do these late night streams from time to time, because there's some people that watch my channel that are never available or never awake when I stream in the U.S. time zones. Um, hey, Joe's in Maui too. Hey, aloha. Thanks for tuning in. I was wondering if anybody out there would be in the same place as me. I was curious. Um, it's nice to find someone else in the chat is, but yeah, it's kind of late for you, isn't it? Yeah, it's after 10 here. Nothing was wrong with HomePod but Siri. Yeah, I think there was more to it than that. I think the connectivity was the bigger issue. You couldn't connect those HomePods to anything else. They had to play Apple Music. They wouldn't play Spotify, and I feel like if you make a $300 speaker, it'd be nice to be able to connect it to your Mac and use it as a, you know, desktop sound system. Altman is in LA and watching. Geez, it's like 1 in the morning for him. My goodness. But yeah, I think HomePods could have at least supported regular Bluetooth. They have the hardware for that connectivity, like Bluetooth was built into the HomePod, but they just didn't let you connect to it via Bluetooth, which meant that you couldn't play music to the HomePod from an Android phone, and all you could play to it that was from a different device was through AirPlay, and AirPlay inherently has more lag than Bluetooth does. Even with Bluetooth, you could have a decent pair of desktop speakers paired to your Mac or whatever. Um, Fairly little latency. Still, a wired connection would be better. But again, a lot of the time with these audio products that Apple makes, I keep saying, like, this would make more sense if it was a great passive consumer device that could also be a Mac professional device. If it can kind of cover both markets, then people will justify the higher price. Like, it's a smart speaker that's great for the home and the kitchen and the bedroom, and you can talk to it and tell it to play music, but you can also connect it to your Mac and use it for work. That's great, can do everything. But when you make it really expensive and really high quality so that the audiophiles care about it, but then you limit the connectivity so that only everyday consumers can connect to it, it's just this weird middle ground where both parties are kind of confused by it. The everyday consumers say it's too expensive and I can't justify it. And the professionals say the connectivity is too limited, so I can't justify it. So that's why it probably didn't sell all that great. But Tony says, I don't think they have killed the iPhone mini. It's just not worth updating it every year. Hopefully, they will update this year, more likely next year. I would say at this point, there's almost no chance of them updating it this year based on the rumors. And I mean, I don't, I don't need to pretend. I'm not trying to pretend I'm a source or anything. I don't know if other YouTubers have received these offers or not, but I've actually received emails from third-party companies that are iPhone accessory makers that are designing iPhone accessories that already have USB-C in them. Now, to be clear, I don't know if those accessory makers are just getting ahead of themselves and saying, well, we read the reports that said the iPhone's getting USB-C, so we figured we should design USB-C iPhone accessories, or what I think is probably the more likely scenario is the case manufacturers get the dimensions and the specs of the iPhone early. That's usually where we get a lot of iPhone CAD files and iPhone dimensions leaked, is through third-party manufacturers for accessories, because they have all the dimensions and all of the placements of the buttons and the ports and all that and the speaker grill. So when the accessory makers are aware of the dimensions and stuff, they know how to design their accessories so that they can launch them alongside the iPhone 15 when they come out. And there was at least one company that reached out to me saying, we have some iPhone 15 accessories we want you to test for us. And I'm pretty sure they had Type C on it, because they said, like, charging docks and stuff. So I think it's, you know, I won't say it's confirmed, because that case manufacturer might just be in that accessory manufacturer, I should say. They weren't just doing cases. They're probably a bit ahead of themselves. That they could be just basing it off of the leaks and, well, the rumors say this, so we're just going to design for that. I don't know, but yeah, I still think after doing this for several years, there's a certain amount of accuracy that comes. Next reconnection successful. Thank you. Sorry about that, everybody. Spectrum freaked out. Um, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I think someone was suggesting, which I think is a good idea. 1 year they could do a plus phone, and then the next year they could do a mini phone, and they just kind of, because it sounds like the plus phones aren't selling that well anyway. So 1 year do a mini, 1 year do a plus, and then That way you always have one or the other available. Like right now, you can buy a 14 Plus or a 13 Mini, and maybe next year you could buy a 14 Plus or a 15 Mini. Or no, maybe they'll do two. They did 2 years of Mini, so maybe they'll do 2 years of Plus. 14 Plus, 15 Plus is most likely happening. And then after that, you could do 16 Mini, 17 Mini, and then 18 Plus, 19 Plus, or whatever. That way, everybody gets something that fits their needs best, I suppose. Um, Omar says, I heard the regular 15 line doesn't get 120 hertz. Kind of absurd. What do you think about it? Like, yeah, there's Android phones that have it at that price point, but truthfully, I understand why Apple's not doing it because the vast majority of customers don't care or notice, honestly. Like, I really love ProMotion and I care about it, but I have tried to show so many people 120 hertz and ask them if they can see the difference, and most of the time they can't tell. Or if they can tell, they don't really care that much. So if you're trying to make a lower end iPhone and you're trying to come up with reasons for people to buy a Pro, like what should the Pro have over the regular? Usually tech specy things that more nerds are going to care about the specs. If you care about the specs, 120 hertz is a fairly geeky, nerdy thing to focus on. So I totally get why they're not doing it, but I get it. When you compare it to Android, Android has it on a lower end product. So it feels like, yeah, what's the point? But the iPhone user base, I don't think it's really that big a deal for most of them. HomePods make me rage. How on earth they don't have Bluetooth or a jack of some sort? They do have Bluetooth. It's just not Bluetooth you can access. Only Apple devices can make it work, and even then they are limited by what you can stream to them. I know, it's very confusing. I don't get it either. My HomePod has just basically become a dedicated speaker for my Apple TV. That's all I use it for. I don't talk to it. I don't tell it to play music or anything. I never AirPlay my iPhone to it. It's just permanently connected to my Apple TV. Um, let's see. Yeah, Julian basically reiterated what I just said. K Stylo says, do you think Meta will try to match the new Vision? I'm trying to decide whether I should get the Vision when it comes out or see what Meta is coming out with. Well, I think Apple's advantage will definitely be their custom silicon. You know, the Verge put it in a very interesting way. They were like, the Meta Quest headsets are basically like they're using mid-range Snapdragon chips. It's like putting a mid-range Android phone on your face. Vision Pro is like putting a MacBook on your face with the silicon computational performance and the custom R1 chip. That's just going to allow so much better immersion, response time, hand tracking, eye tracking than probably anything Meta is going to be able to come up with. But I do think now that Apple has kind of entered the field and set the standard and said, yes, we're willing to sell a $3,500 headset. I think Meta will actually do better now. I don't think they're in trouble. Some people are like, oh, Apple just killed Meta. I think Meta is probably going to feel a lot more validated now because when Apple enters a field, it instantly encourages everybody to compare it to the alternatives. And now that Meta realizes, wait a minute, Apple can sell a headset for $3,500. Oh, then we can definitely sell a headset for $3,000. So the overhead they have now, and before Meta was probably trying to work in a reasonable price structure, like let's keep our headsets between $500 and $1,000. You know, let's keep them affordable. But now that Apple's entering the space and everyone's talking about Vision Pro and that's way more expensive, now we can make our headsets way more expensive and we'll still look reasonable. We'll still have people saying, oh, I should get the Meta Quest whatever because that's $1,000 cheaper than Apple's headset. So I think Meta's probably very, very happy about Vision Pro because now they feel more assured that this is an industry that's going to continue to exist. And Meta loves to copy. Just look at Threads. Meta copies everybody. So I'm sure all of the best parts of Vision Pro, they will likely copy and integrate and try to make it into a cheaper headset. And then Apple will get mad about the patents or whatever. But that's just the story of Apple products is Apple isn't first to a new category, but they come at it with a fresh, unique perspective. And then everybody else changes their product to be more like Apple's. So, yeah, they will probably try to match the new Vision Pro. I have the 14 Pro Max and my dad has the 13. I know this sounds kind of extreme, but I honestly hate using his phone. It feels so laggy. I know what you mean. When I was on 120 hertz for a while, it became really, really annoying anytime I used a 60 hertz device. But you do get used to it, for the record. It took me several weeks, but you can get used to 60 hertz again. It's possible to go backwards. It just takes a long time. If EU requires USB-C, then Apple will need to update all iPhone models to SE Mini Plus, etc., if they want to sell in the EU. I believe it only applies to new hardware. I don't think they have to change it across all the older phones, but yes, it creates more incentive for Apple to update the entire lineup so that they get rid of all the Lightning iPhones pretty quickly. So they might discontinue. They'll probably discontinue the iPhone 12 this year when the 15s come out. So that will leave the 14s. They'll get rid of the 14 Pros like usual. Which means the only Lightning iPhone, and then I personally think, I could be wrong, but they could drop a USB-C iPhone SE in spring of 24, which would mean the only iPhones left in the lineup with Lightning. I think similar how they got rid of the 12 mini, they'll probably get rid of the 13 mini. So all there will be left in the lineup, maybe they'll get rid of the 14 Plus as well. That might be a bit redundant. So they could end up just having iPhone 13, 14 are the only iPhones with Lightning, and then everything else a year from now is just Type C. And then when the iPhone 16 series comes out, they can get rid of the Lightning iPhones. But yeah, I think it'll be a pretty swift transition. Meta Pro is like less than half the price, so now they can jack up the price and make them crazier. Unfortunately, I see VR as a way to milk enthusiasts. I can't see normal people using them. Well, that's kind of the interesting thing. Apple has a very good track record of getting normal people to use geeky tech that only enthusiasts use. That's how Apple was founded, basically. Only geeky nerds were using home computers, but Apple came around, made it simple and intuitive and easy to set up, and then you had everyday consumers using computers. Same thing with laptops, same thing with smartphones. Originally, smartphones were more of a business person thing, like people who needed to send emails for work. Not everyday people were buying smartphones until the iPhone came around and they made it intuitive and simple. Same thing with the Apple Watch. Definitely not the first smartwatch, but only geeks and nerds were using smartwatches until the Apple Watch came out, and that's how they got kind of the mainstream to adopt them. So that's why there's a lot of people excited, including myself, about Vision Pro, because this could be how Apple finds a way to take an enthusiast product and turn it into a everyday consumer mainstream product, like um, the Apple Watch, like the iPhone and Macs. That's a lot of their history, is taking geeky, nerdy tech and bringing it down to everyday people. Making it intuitive and simple. Granta says, I have not had any issues using both the SE2 and 13 Pro Max simultaneously. Perhaps I'm more adaptive. Impressive. How are your eyes not bleeding? I feel like AR may become more mainstream instead. Well, that's, I think, the whole point of Vision OS. It's very clear that they intend it to be well, Apple doesn't use the word AR. They use the term spatial computing, but they don't seem too keen on virtual reality. They are more interested in augmented reality, but they're a shared market. The Meta Quest does similar things. It has a camera pass-through mode, and I'm sure with the success of Vision Pro, Meta will probably double down on trying to make better pass-through support and have more cameras and more hand tracking features. And they're probably working right now on integrating eye tracking into their headsets. And Meta loves to copy people, so I have no doubt that they're going to copy the Vision Pro as much as they can and probably charge $3,000 for it, so they can say, see, you can buy our headset and save $500, and they'll have some specs as to why it's better. It's technically better than Apple's headset, because of blah blah blah. Whatever. They'll use cheaper materials and worse displays and worse cameras, and it won't be as good, but it'll be a decent alternative, I guess, for people who don't want the Apple one. Anyway, I've been streaming almost 2 hours. I apologize for all the Spectrum dropouts, but this will be my last live stream for a while. I don't know when I'm going to be live again, so hang in there, hang tight, and I've got some more traveling to do, so I'll see you guys around, and I hope you have an excellent rest of your evening. Thanks all. Bye-bye.